Many people think that hurricanes in America are the strongest storms in the world, but the truth is different. Typhoons in the Western Pacific are at least as powerful, and many times even stronger, rewriting weather records and devastating entire regions. Today we'll explore the most legendary typhoons ever recorded, and you'll discover shocking facts that most people don't know about these storms. The modern era of classification began in 1947 with Typhoon ROSALIND, the very first storm to be officially called a Super Typhoon by the JTWC. Just a few years later, in 1951, Typhoon Iris became the first Category 5 equivalent super typhoon on record, proving that the Pacific could generate storms of unimaginable intensity. In the same year, Typhoon RUTH struck Japan, peaking at a central pressure of 924 hectopascals and causing severe flooding and over 572 deaths, with damage to tens of thousands of homes and millions in property losses. Just a few years later, in 1955, came another Typhoon RUTH. According to historical records, RUTH in 1955 lasted almost 6 days and had a minimum pressure of 925 hectopascals. It is often listed with peak winds of around 335 kilometers per hour and considered one of the strongest storms of that season. However, reliable records of human toll or economic damages are lacking, and many of the dramatic numbers sometimes attributed to it remain unverified. Just 4 years later, Typhoon VERA in 1959, also known as the IOKE typhoon, struck Japan with catastrophic power. It killed over 5,000 people, making it the deadliest typhoon in Japanese history, and caused damages exceeding $600 million. In the same year, Typhoon JOAN battered Taiwan with record winds, killing 11 people and leaving scars across the island. These early storms showed how deadly the Pacific could be. 2 years later, in 1961, Typhoon Nancy arrived with winds that challenged meteorological records. For decades, Nancy was listed with sustained winds over 215 miles per hour, making it one of the strongest cyclones ever recorded, although later studies revised the numbers. Regardless, its intensity was undeniable. Nancy churned through the Ryukyu Islands and struck Japan with ferocious power, destroying more than 11,000 homes and cutting power for millions. Over 200 lives were lost and damages reached $500 million. Enormous for its time. In 1962, Super Typhoon Karen changed Guam forever. With winds exceeding 170 miles per hour, Karen flattened most of the island's infrastructure. Though miraculously no direct fatalities were reported, damages hit $250 million, making it one of the costliest storms of its era. A decade later, in 1972, Typhoon RITA emerged as the longest-lived super typhoon ever observed, lasting over 3 weeks. RITA tested forecasting capabilities and showed how prolonged storms could disrupt entire regions. In 1979, the Pacific saw the largest and most powerful tropical cyclone ever measured, Super Typhoon Tip. With a diameter of more than 2,000 kilometers, nearly half the size of the continental U.S., Tip reached winds of 190 miles per hour and set the record low pressure of 870 millibars. Tip struck Japan, where floods and landslides killed nearly 100 people, with damages over $1.5 billion. Just a few years later, in 1983, Typhoon FORREST set a record for the fastest intensification ever observed, deepening explosively within hours. Though less deadly than Tip, FORREST stunned scientists and remains a benchmark in rapid intensification studies. The 1990s brought a new wave of destructive typhoons. In 1990, Typhoon Flo battered Japan with flooding rains that killed more than 40 people and caused billions in damages. In 1995, Typhoon Angela tore across the Philippines with 185 miles per hour winds, flattening provinces and killing more than 900 people, one of the deadliest modern Pacific storms. Two years later, 1997 became infamous as the Super Typhoon season. That year, Typhoon JOAN struck the northern Philippines at Category 5 strength, while Typhoon OLIWA made a rare cross-basin journey, intensifying into a super typhoon that lashed Okinawa and Hokkaido. OLIWA killed 17 people and caused costly damage in Japan. Typhoon Winnie the same year devastated China with floods that killed hundreds, while Typhoon Zeb hammered Luzon before moving to Taiwan and Japan, killing over 100. In December 1997, Typhoon PAKA completed the season's chaos, devastating Micronesia and Guam with winds exceeding 170 miles per hour. Although only 6 deaths were recorded, damages reached $580 million. These storms made 1997 one of the most active and destructive typhoon years in history. After a quieter period, 2002 saw Typhoon PONGSONA strike Guam, destroying thousands of homes and causing damages of more than $700 million, leaving the island in darkness for weeks. Then, in 2006, Typhoon IOKE emerged. It was a long-lived monster born in the Central Pacific that crossed into the west as a super typhoon, ravaging Wake Island with 160 miles per hour winds and waves over 15 meters. Damage topped $80 million, proving even remote islands were not safe. In the same year, Typhoon SAOMAI ravaged eastern China with extreme flooding and more than 400 deaths, one of the worst disasters in the country's typhoon history. The next decade brought some of the deadliest storms ever recorded. In 2012, Typhoon Bopha, locally Pablo, struck Mindanao in the southern Philippines. Rare for its latitude, Bopha hit at Category 5 strength, burying entire villages in landslides and floods. Nearly 2,000 people died, with hundreds missing, and damages topped $1.2 billion. Just a year later, in 2013, came Typhoon Haiyan, known locally as Yolanda. Haiyan may have been the strongest tropical cyclone ever to strike land, with estimated winds of 195 miles per hour. The Philippines suffered catastrophic losses. Over 6,000 dead, millions displaced, and damages of $14 billion. Haiyan remains a turning point in disaster awareness. In 2014, Typhoon RAMMASUN tore through Luzon with winds over 150 miles per hour, killing nearly 200 and causing damages close to $8 billion. Then, in 2018, Super Typhoon MANGKHUT, or Ampong, slammed into northern Luzon with winds of 165 miles per hour, killing at least 134 people and causing damages of $3.8 billion. It then struck China and Hong Kong, shattering skyscraper windows and flooding towns. Just weeks later, Super Typhoon YUTU devastated the northern Mariana Islands, leveling Saipan and Tinian with 180 miles per hour winds. YUTU killed 30 people and caused $800 million in losses, the strongest storm ever to hit the islands. In October 2019, Super Typhoon HAGIBIS slammed into Japan, becoming the costliest typhoon in the country's history, with damages surpassing $15 billion. Despite advanced warnings, more than 100 people were killed as rivers burst their banks. Just a year later, in November 2020, Typhoon GONI, or Raleigh, became the strongest landfalling cyclone ever observed. With 195 miles per hour winds, it flattened provinces in the Philippines, destroying over 200,000 homes. At least 32 people were killed, and damages reached $1 billion. In 2021, Typhoon SURIGAE rapidly intensified into one of the strongest April typhoons ever, reaching Category 5 status east of the Philippines. Though it never made a direct strike, SURIGAE displaced nearly 200,000 people and caused damages of around $500 million. Then, in September 2022, Typhoon NANMADOL swept into Japan's Kyushu region with winds of 125 miles per hour, forcing mass evacuations. At least 17 people died, and billions in damage were reported. In May 2023, Typhoon MAWAR battered Guam with 140 miles per hour winds, uprooting trees and destroying power grids. Damages exceeded $200 million, and it was the island's strongest storm in 2 decades. Just months later, Typhoon DOKSURI, or GAE, lashed the Philippines, Taiwan, and China with 150 miles per hour winds and catastrophic rains. Over 150 people were killed, and damages surpassed $15 billion, making it one of the costliest storms in history. Finally, in 2025, Typhoon Ragasa became the latest super typhoon on record, continuing the unbroken chain of extreme Pacific storms. Other violent super typhoons have also marked history but didn't make it into today's list. In 1977, Typhoon Haiyan battered Hong Kong, bringing destructive winds and flooding. 13 years later, in 1990, Typhoon Mike, locally Rupiang, devastated the Philippines, killing more than 700 people and leaving millions homeless. The following year, 1991, became infamous with two record storms: Typhoon Yuri, one of the most intense cyclones ever observed over open waters, and Typhoon Mireille, which struck Japan and became the country's costliest storm of the 20th century. Jumping forward, in 2015 Typhoon Chanham lashed eastern China, forcing the evacuation of over 1 million people. A year later, in 2016, Typhoon Marantai exploded to winds of 190 miles per hour, one of the strongest typhoons ever recorded, slamming into Taiwan and China with catastrophic power. In 2019, Typhoon Lekama triggered deadly landslides in China, killing more than 50 people and causing over $9 billion in losses. More recently, in 2022, Typhoon Hinamner roared across the western Pacific and slammed into South Korea, becoming one of the strongest storms ever to hit the Korean peninsula. The next year, 2023, Typhoon Kanan brought weeks of heavy rain and wind to Japan, Taiwan, and Korea, leaving billions in damages and testing disaster preparedness across the region. Each of these storms left behind scars and stories of survival, reminding us that the typhoon season is never truly over. These were some of the most powerful typhoons in Western Pacific history, each with its own story of destruction, survival, and lessons for the future. And the typhoon season is far from over, with new storms forming almost every month. Which of these typhoons shocked you the most? And do you think we'll see an even stronger one in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating stories about extreme weather and the ongoing typhoon season.